Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I am Ben, and this is the Gibson 1959 Collector's Edition Series 2 humbucker. Let's get into it. Well, I'm back with the Gibson 1959 Series 2 Collector's Edition pickups here. They look a lot like the Series 1 Collector's Edition pickups that I reviewed about a year ago. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put the link for it right here, or you can check in the description below. So here's how this is going to go. I'm going to talk about the 1959 series pickups for a little bit, and then I'm going to install both Series 1 and Series 2 in a guitar and do a side-by-side A-B comparison. I'm going to install them inside of, wait, no, not this guitar. I'm going to put them in this guitar right here this time, and something I'm a little bit more comfortable with, and I think maybe we can have a better system for evaluating how the pickups sound. And then when I'm done, I'm going to check the comments out, and if they're anything like the Series 1 pickups from earlier this year, I'm sure they're going to be very entertaining at the very least. So Gibson has released yet another of the most accurate reproduction PAF models yet, and this one is not just a reproduction in the way that it looks, but also the innards as well, just like Series 1. They've recreated the same plastics that they used back in the 50s. That includes the pickup ring and the bobbins as well. We've got the same pickup wire that they used back then. They've even recreated the tooling marks that they had back in the 50s. Same with what was on the Series 1 edition. And just like the Series 1, the pickup rings for these pickups are about 1/8 of an inch taller than what you would find on today's pickup rings, which are a little bit lower and allow the pickup to stick up a little bit more. Now, as you can see, Series 2 of this pickup also comes in the classic bread loaf lift-in case here that leaves a lot of people wondering, what do you do with that case after you install those pickups? I don't know. I'm going to store snacks in mine, I think. And these retail for about $1,000, same as the Series 1 pickups here. You can see the pickups are nicely nestled inside that case there. And then, of course, there's a little bit of documentation right there at the top. It looks like we've got a certificate of authenticity here, which pretty much just tells you that, yeah, it's the Gibson Pickup Shop, purchase number 188, which is a bit higher than when I bought Series 1. I think I'm purchased 60 or 61, something like that. And then there's a couple other things inside the case here. It looks like we've got the product warranty card there. And inside that little leaflet, we've got a couple stickers. Looks like we've got the Gibson Pickup Shop and the patent applied for sticker. Patent applied for sticker is kind of cool. And then it looks like we've also got an old-timey advertisement that would be in a magazine or, I don't know, maybe a Sears Roebuck catalog or something. It's basically the new, another outstanding Gibson advancement, humbucking pickups. All right, well, what do you expect for $1,000, right? So you might be asking yourself, what is the difference between Series 1 here and Series 2 of these pickups? And there is a couple subtle differences, and then there's obviously one major difference. The subtle differences is that they changed the magnets. So Series 1 has Alnico 4 magnets, Series 2 has Alnico 2 magnets. And I noticed Gibson changed the description that was on the website. When Series 1 came out, that was touted as the most accurate PAF up to that date. So of course, when Series 2 came out, they had to modify that line a little bit. So it said the originals used a variety of magnets, including Alnico 2 and Alnico 4 magnets. Those pickups are some of the most highly valued and sought after in the used market. So yes, they did end up changing the magnets from 4 to 2 for this model, but otherwise the other materials are mostly the same, with the exception that the Series 1 used double white bobbins underneath the covers, where Series 2 used a zebra bobbin. We've got the white bobbin under the slugs and the black bobbin for the screws. Now, there are some people out there that believe that these vintage plastics do affect your tone, and maybe that's some of the mojo. I think it was Seth Lover, though, that said, no, that has nothing to do with it. It's going to be more determined by what kind of shielding you have in your guitar or even the covers that are on top of it. Myself, I don't know if I have the ear training to detect vintage plastic versus new plastic for pickups, so I'm just going to leave that one out there in the air. Now finally, the most aesthetic change to these pickups is that Series 2 got the Murphy Lab treatment, and these definitely look like they've been plucked out of a 1959 Les Paul that's been sitting underneath Grandpa's bed for the last 50 years there. And you can see, of course, when you compare the Series 2 here to the Series 1, that Series 1 is nice and bright and shiny, and the other one is a little bit more worn out. Now, I'll admit, the Murphy Lab, I think, is overpriced, and the idea of paying for something that looks used and worn just doesn't check any boxes in my mind. But I have to admit that I think that these slightly used-looking pickups look better than the shinier pickups. Maybe that's just the Murphy Lab spell finally washing over me. I have no idea. Let me know if I'm crazy. But it does make me wonder, the Murphy Lab generally charges a significant upcharge. So if you look at a Les Paul Custom, for example, an ultralight Murphy Lab job raises the cost about 500 bucks. If you look at a ultra heavy Murphy Lab job, it's upwards of around $4,000 upcharge. It turns a $6,500 guitar into a nearly $11,000 guitar. So what is the Murphy Lab cost for a set of pickups here? Because these are $1,000. These are $1,000. Can I don't know, send in a receipt for these and get like $200 in Murphy Lab bucks or something? It doesn't really make much sense to me. In fact, if there was any evidence that Gibson was just printing money, I think that might be it right there. Now, in case you're curious about the pickup ratings for these pickups in particular, well, for the bridge pickup, I'm getting an 8.71. For the neck, I'm getting a 7.79. And for the middle position, I'm getting a 4.11, which is pretty close to right on spec for what the website has. Now, just as a comparison, the Series 1 pickups, I was getting an 8.17 for the bridge and a 7.69 for the neck. So the Series 2 pickups are definitely a tiny bit hotter than the Series 1. And it probably goes without saying that both of these pickups are not wax potted. Now, it does look like maybe the Murphy Lab had their hands on the case as well. You can see the inside of the Series 2 case here is a little bit more pinkish, like a vintage case would be, whereas the Series 1 is a brighter red. Now, another small thing I've noticed about the case here is these pickups sit on these little pads in here, and they've actually lowered the height of those so that these Series 2 pickups sit flush with the top of the case, which I actually read some other people having an issue with the Series 1 is the closest you can get the pickups down in there is like that because the bumpers are significantly higher than they are on the Series 2 pickups. So you kind of have to force the lid closed on this one to get it to latch. Now, in case there's a few of you out there that don't know about the PAF and the legacy behind it, well, that is a giant can of worms that I'm about to just slightly crack open. Now, the thought behind these pickups is that Gibson has finally recreated the magic that was in the late '59 pickups, which are regarded as being some of the most legendary humbuckers in existence. Now, where it gets a little crazy is you talk to anybody out there, or Gibson even themselves, and they will say that the magic in these pickups is the variation in the very construction materials that went into making them. They were not consistent at all with what magnets they used, with how many winds of coil were in the pickups, with the bobbin colors that they used, with the sizes and manufacturing of them. And it was all sorts of things like this that made the PAF, which was different from one guitar to the next guitar. And that's really what takes away a lot of significance when Gibson releases the perfect PAF replica. Take, for example, in 2013 when Gibson released the Humbucker pickup, which was touted as the most accurate PAF to date. Now, that one also had Alnico 3 magnets and uneven winds of coil to give it that signature PAF bite. They said a similar thing about the Burstbuckers when those were released, and those were, of course, named after the late 50s burst Les Paul guitars, hence the name Burstbucker. Those, of course, are Alnico 2 magnets with uneven winds of coil. Then the 57 Classics, also touted as a PAF replica, those are potted pickups with Alnico 2 magnets and a little bit more balanced with the coil windings. The point is, even though it's confusing that Gibson says, this is the most accurate PAF, no, this is the most accurate PAF, no, actually, this is the most accurate PAF, in a weird way, it's kind of accurate because that's how the PAFs were in the late 50s. Mismatched magnets, mismatched coil winds, some pickups were dogs, some pickups were amazing. And that's what makes the search for the perfect PAF kind of silly in my book. All right, let's get into the sound test. This is a 2023 Gibson SG61 standard. Nothing too crazy about it. It's got your standard modern Gibson electronics outfit in it, which is 500K pots and orange drop capacitors. Other than that, there's not really any modifications to this guitar here. I will put all the settings on the side here so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, and they are going to be duplicated for each set of pickups, so you can do an accurate A-B comparison there. And I actually do document everything pretty well here, so I can go back when I'm editing this video and put all the correct settings in there. And Additionally, when I'm doing the recording, I can dial it in. Oh, that's 8.5, that's 10, so on and so forth. Now, if you're curious about the effects I'm using, I always use a tumnus pedal if it's a little overdriven, and if it's screaming, I'm using a tube screamer. And these go into a twin reverb, which is then being recorded into PreSonus Studio One. Occasionally in Studio One, I will add a little bit of reverb or delay if I think it adds to the track, but that is about it. Now, before we get into the sound test, I do want to say thank you to Stringjoy, who helps me provide these strings. I use the Broadway strings. I love them. You should give them a shot. I think they're really cool. Oh yeah, one more thing. In the top corner, I'll put Series 1 or Series 2 in big letters so you can see exactly what pickups I'm using. All right, let's get into it. Well, there you have it. That is the sound test between the Series 1 and Series 2 of the Gibson 1959 Collector's Edition Humbuckers. To my ear, I think the Series 2 sounded a little bit better. I think there was a little bit more throatiness in the middle position, and especially in the neck position that was really easy to hear when you A-B'd the songs back and forth. I do think the sound difference between the bridge positions was negligible, at least to my ear. I didn't hear too much of a difference there, but I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. I also want to point out, I thought this guitar was going to look really hideous with these cream pickup rings on the all black plastics that are normally on an SG, but I gotta admit, I think it looks kind of cool. Maybe I'm just going crazy, I don't know. But one thing I did want to point out is the higher pickup rings. I mentioned that at the start of this review, and yeah, you can see I've got these pickups bottomed out to the top of those rings there, and that's because these vintage rings are 1/8 of an inch taller than what's normally on an SG. Regarding Series 1 versus Series 2, I understand why there's more than one version of the best pickup ever made, because there's been so many variations historically of this best pickup ever made. But on the other hand, how do you charge $1,000 for the definitive edition of an ever-evolving pickup? And I think that's the main problem with the Series 1 and Series 2 humbuckers. And as far as I understand it, there's still hundreds of the original lot that are still up for sale. And that was only 1,000 of them about a year ago. So says that these things are not moving very fast. Not to mention, for about $750 less, you can get a set of Seymour Duncan Seth Lovers here, which have nearly the same exact components as the Series 2 Gibson humbuckers here. Let me know in the comments if I should do a shootout between these two pickups. I think that might be very interesting. But yeah, I think the price here is definitely the biggest hurdle for me on these pickups, probably for a lot of you as well, because the fact is, Gibson actually does make some really good pickups. The Custom Buckers, the 57 Classics, the Burst Buckers, really great pickups at a fraction of the cost of these. So if you're buying these for the sound, you're wasting your money. When you buy these, what you're actually paying for is the science and analysis and research that went into the actual vintage pickups to help them recreate these sort of modern day replicas, complete with the vintage accurate materials and plastics. Not to mention, for these ones in particular, you're paying for a little bit of the Murphy Lab. And we can't forget the beautiful Lifton bread box case that we're also paying for. So if you want a great sound at a fraction of the cost, I'd say pick up some Seth Lovers or the Custom Buckers, some of my favorite pickups there. Anyway, I appreciate you watching this video. I'm looking forward to reading the comments. I'm hoping it's as entertaining as when I did the Series 1 review. If you like this review, consider clicking the like button. If you like content like this, consider clicking the subscribe button. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I will catch you next time. Wait, no, not this. Not that guitar. I'm going to install those